While replaying Silksong, I noticed that the map has a very clear structure. Like, if we go here, note that I'm in Act 3, these places primarily consist of muck and trash. People here steal from you, straight up kidnap you, and might eat you if given the chance. But if we go to the Citadel, the bugs here wear clean white robes, use swords made out of high quality material, and give you loads of rosaries when killed. One is clearly better for its citizens, and we can feel that from the difference between the two areas. But how deep does this difference go? Let's find out. Immediately when logging into my 61-hour gameplay of Silksong, you can immediately notice the thing that I'm sitting on, a bench. Now you might think of it as just a normal object that the game uses as a checkpoint, but it's much more than this. More on that later. Throughout our journey in Pharloom, we meet many bugs that they say they want to go to the Citadel seeking salvation. These bugs are what the game calls the pilgrims. I don't really know why they go to the Citadel, but the promise of salvation, enlightenment, and eternal holy song. Alright, but most do not make it far on this long journey due to where the Citadel is located. It's located at the very top of Pharloom's world, making it very hard for the bugs to reach this so-called sacred place. What's interesting is that throughout playing the game, we see many signs that lead us to a bell station or a bench, just like this one I'm sitting in right now. Knowing the lore of the Citadel, I think this was made by the pilgrims, sort of making a guide for future pilgrims along the way. Like if we search Silksong interactive map, boom, let's get rid of this and voila. Just looking at the map, there are a bunch of these markers that indicate where useful locations are. We see tents that imply that there were people here traveling before us. A whole resting area can be seen in the middle of Greymore that sells beer and stuff. These checkpoints for the game are much deeper when looking at it with a different lens. Instead of just being a way for the player to heal or to have a guide, seeing it with this different piece of information, Hornet was simply another pilgrim in their eyes. We as Hornet can experience what the pilgrims experience when trekking the long road to the Citadel. Except that we have plot armor and any failure we have is just a dream for Hornet or something. But as I researched, I realized that Hornet has a much bigger role than just a pilgrim in the world of Pharloom. But you have
watch the whole 10-minute video, guys.
But aside from that, the buildings between the regions tell a whole other story as well, or the lack thereof. Here, take a look. In areas outside the Citadel is just so barren and empty except for the previously mentioned markers and benches and occasional buildings we find. There's a certain theme in most of the areas. The moss grotto is very green and foresty due to the overgrown moss and grass. The marrow and deep docks have very extreme temperatures, which is why most bugs here have adapted and transformed their way of living. Mount Faye is icy, Blasted Steps is sandy, Bilewater is
the biggest piece of dog shit.
And yet, when we go to the Citadel, it doesn't have a clear visual identity. Yeah, it has sub-areas that have different vibes and tone, but at its core, it's just a bunch of buildings that people have made. These sub-areas all have a role in the mechanism of the Citadel. There's a place for entertainment, a place for the machinery itself, even a place that kidnaps bugs and species from other places.
Hey, wait a minute, what the hell?
It relies heavily on the structure, the machinery of the place to fill in the space between Hornet and the rest of the map, which invokes a feeling that it's manned by a government or is rich enough to build extravagant architecture that actually has a purpose in the world. Like these freaking parkour platform thingies or these cogs in the cogworks area. Unlike in other places where Hornet feels like a very small bug in a vast area of green, red, or blue. Because it doesn't have enough manpower, or because it has no other purpose to fill this empty space, unlike what I said about the Citadel. Alright, so we've established that the map does have subtle details that make the world feel lived in. But how about the people actually living in this world? Or the bugs, like this guy or gal. One of the very first bugs that we meet is Chakra, which is this game's equivalent of Cornifer, a map merchant. But I think what separates her from Cornifer is that she actually has some stakes to her character. As we progress her story, we get to know that she too, in a way, is a pilgrim. But instead of going to the Citadel, she aims to find this guy, her long-lost master. A cool detail that I just realized is that throughout the game, Chakra doesn't sell us maps of the Citadel. Even though we can buy pretty much every map from her, even Mount Faye of all places, Hornet gets her Citadel maps from these cartography machines scattered throughout the city. You'd think it would be simpler for Chakra to be the one selling maps across the whole region and less confusing for players. Yet, Team Cherry opted for another, more fancier way to acquire simple player UI in the Citadel. Because a pilgrim like Chakra selling maps she herself laid out and drew wouldn't fit in the Citadel image and themes of the story. The Citadel uses this advanced technology because it's so much more richer than those of other regions. Like these freaking tube elevators when in other places it's just a chain and a platform. Straight up species of bugs also imply that the life outside of the Citadel is poor and crappy, one of which are the snitchfly. Like that guy we meet in a prison, Grindel. Alright, and he is a snitch bug. Alright, this guy, Grindel, was someone you meet in the Marrow who was imprisoned for a quote-unquote light thievery, and eventually they become a tradable merchant as we progress in the game, who sells you hidden gems. But more of these snitch dudes appear all throughout Pharloom, and whenever they attack you, they literally steal rosaries from you. A tiny detail that implies that the people outside of the Citadel will literally do anything to survive. Everyone including Hornet herself. Hornet will savagely kill, butcher, and otherwise destroy any pilgrim she encounters, if there's a chance that they will bring the lifeblood of Pharloom, rosaries. Rosaries were the talk of the town when Silksong first released, because it can be found literally nowhere. Fans and critics also say that it adds an unfair layer of difficulty to the game, which is the scarcity of rosaries. In the beginning, you can barely get any rosaries from enemies or even bosses, when it's an essential currency for progressing. Every single thing from the benches, to the maps, to the tools, to the teeny bits of silk is locked behind the paywall that is not very easy to come across. So you have to search the best rosary farming location just to find out that the best farms are locked in the Citadel. The fact that it's in the Citadel goes to show that this is not only a weird gaming choice for the devs, it's also a deliberate thematic choice for the story. Having rosaries be scarce and everything needing rosaries to acquire reflects the class struggle that the world of Pharloom is having. Only the wealthy, the people of the Citadel, have enough bread to live the bare minimum in this society. Now, I won't talk that deeply on class struggle and wealth power as I've already talked about it in a previous video, but in the grand scheme of things, what is Little Bug Mommy's role in all of this? Sure, she could just be a vessel we can play as to see the oppression and the capitalist society through her eyes, similar to the Knight in the first game. But the main difference between the Knight and Hornet is that Hornet can actually speak. Hornet, through the power of words, straight up rebuilds communities, helps deliver freaking food from one corner of the map to the other, and most importantly, liberates the community. We see this countless of times. When Hornet defeated Morwing, the Flea Caravan used it as a temporary place of theirs, similar to how Hornet rebuilt Bellheart by defeating Widow. And in the very end of Act 3, by defeating the Void that has corrupted Lace, she essentially liberates not only Lace from the Void, but also the whole of Pharloom itself. Hornet serves as the heroine in her story, similar to classic literature like King Arthur or the Odyssey, where a character has to tilt all the odds into their favor in order to succeed in a very long, difficult journey to save the day. So, with all that was said, is the wealth gap between the Citadel actually embedded in the themes, the story, the map? After using my big brain, I think the answer is pretty clear.
It's a yes from me.
Team Cherry did not just make the Citadel look wealthy, they made everything outside of it feel deliberately poor. And yet, the whole system of Pharloom was built to honor the Weavers, these gods or whatever they are, all-female race of highly intelligent humanoid spiders. And all the while, their last descendant is the one dismantling the very thing they promoted. Ironic, I know. These themes of Silksong are not new to the Hollow Knight franchise at all. The first game's premise is about the knight beating pretty much his sibling so that he can liberate the whole of Hallownest from oppression. And now with Silksong, this can be seen in a more systematic fashion, where a descendant of the Weavers try to liberate a community itself. It creates an overarching theme for the two games, one about society and oppression. But the question we as players are left with is simple. When will Sea of Sorrow come out?
Wrong.
Is a society that filters out the very thing it was built to serve really a society? Or just like Pharloom, is one that is hollow at its very core? One that is Hollow Knight Silks?